Hi folks, I'm Dr. Chapman. Today we're going to learn about Crater Lake National Park, the Cascade Volcanic Arc, and fluid flux melting. Crater Lake is a caldera, which is Spanish for cooking pot or cauldron. There's a misconception that calderas form from violent volcanic explosions when a volcano blows its top off, leaving behind a giant hole in the ground. Calderas actually form by the ground collapsing after a magma chamber has been emptied and can no longer support the weight of the overlying rock, like a giant sinkhole. A series of curved normal faults surround calderas known as ring faults. The ring faults terminate in the old magma chamber because only the rock above the chamber dropped down. Caldera collapse can accompany large explosive volcanic eruptions, like in the case of Crater Lake, but calderas can also form during more gentle, effusive eruptions, like the Kilauea crater in Hawaii. The caldera collapse that formed Crater Lake occurred 7,600 years ago during eruption of Mount Mazama, which is the name of the volcano that Crater Lake is located on. Geologists estimate that Mount Mazama was around 3,700 meters tall before the collapse. Today, the bottom of the caldera is less than 2,000 meters high and is filled with 600 meters of water, making it the deepest lake in the United States.
So deep.
After the main eruption, smaller volumes of magma erupted within the caldera to form small cinder cones. The top of the largest cinder cone sticks out above the water and is called Wizard Island. Tephra is the name for any magma or rock fragments produced by explosive volcanic eruptions. Fragments less than about 2 millimeters in diameter called ash. Volcanic ash is easily carried in the wind and can remain in suspension in the air for weeks to months or even longer. Tiny glassy ash particles are a natural abrasive, and ash clouds are particularly hazardous to airplanes and can damage their engines. Geologists estimate that the Mount Mazama ash was erupted 50 kilometers up into the atmosphere. From there, the ash was carried to the northeast by the wind, darkening the skies and blanketing the landscape. The lives of indigenous peoples living nearby were disrupted, and myths explaining the eruption survive to this day in the oral traditions of the Klamath tribes. The Mazama ash layer is also an important stratigraphic marker, helping geologists and archaeologists establish a timeline of past events.
Oh, that's all in the past. You mean the future? Whatever!
Mount Mazama is only one of a long chain of volcanoes called the Cascade Volcanic Arc. The volcanoes are found where the Juan de Fuca plate is subducting beneath North America. Where the plate boundary changes from a subduction zone to the San Andreas Fault at Cape Mendocino, California, the line of volcanoes stops. Likewise, the line of volcano ends to the north where the Cascadia subduction zone intersects with the Queen Charlotte Fairweather Fault, just north of Vancouver Island. The part of the tectonic plate that is sinking into the earth beneath the subduction zone is called a slab. The Juan de Fuca slab is subducting beneath Crater Lake and the rest of the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Scientists used to believe that subducted slabs melted to form the magmas that erupt in arc volcanoes, but we now know it's a little more complicated than that.
Why do you have to make things so complicated?
Slab melting is still thought to occur, but in most instances it contributes very little magma to the arc volcanoes. Most of the magma forms by melting of the mantle overlying the slab. As the subducted slab is heated up, hydrous water-bearing minerals in the slab are metamorphosed and release their water. This water percolates up into the overlying mantle and causes the rocks to melt, called fluid flux melting. This melting produces the magma that produces the volcanoes. The distance between the trench and the volcanic arc tells us how deep the slab is and at what depth the slab is dehydrating, which is around 100 kilometers deep for the Cascade Arc. Despite some Hollywood movies, the mantle isn't a giant pool of magma. Almost all of the mantle is solid rock, and it takes special conditions for it to melt. It gets hotter and hotter as you go down into the earth.
It is hotter than a jalapeno's armpit.
But the pressure also gets higher and higher, which makes it more difficult to melt rocks. Similar to how water boils at a higher temperature at sea level than it does at high elevations, because there's more atmospheric pressure at sea level. If we plot the point that rocks start to melt at different pressures and temperatures, we produce a curve called the solidus. Rocks at pressure temperature conditions above the solidus start to partially melt, but most of the time rocks in the mantle are located beneath the solidus. What happens in subduction zones with fluid flux melting is that the presence of water drastically lowers the solidus, or the melting temperature of the mantle, because water modifies and weakens bonds in the minerals in the rocks. The exact same thing happens when you salt your driveway to help melt ice.
If there was a problem, yo, I'll solve it.
The salt modifies and weakens the bonds in the H2O molecule and allows the bonds to break apart or melt at a lower temperature. In addition to lowering the melting temperature, the addition of water makes magmas much more explosive because as magma rises towards the surface and the pressure is reduced, the water comes out of solution or comes out of the magma as water vapor and expands, like bubbles coming out of a Coke when you release the pressure by opening the top. These gases help propel the magma upward and result in a high-velocity explosive eruption. That is partly why volcanic eruptions in the Cascades at places like Crater Lake and Mount St. Helens can be much more dangerous than eruptions at places like Hawaii, where the magmas contain very little water. It's also what makes Earth so special. If we weren't a blue planet, if we didn't have water, and if we didn't have plate tectonics, there would be no arc volcanoes, and there would be no Crater Lake. Hey, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos and share them with friends and family. Take care.